This is Sarah Jones on the Politicus Pod for Politicus USA's The Daily. Make sure that you subscribe to our Substack so you don't miss any episodes. Republicans are displaying profound disrespect for our institutions, and this isn't normal. Don't let them get away with claiming that the now 3-day speaker election dysfunction is how democracy works. It's not. This isn't normal. Electing a speaker by the time it gets to the floor is a formality. It's negotiated in advance. Republicans are all over the news, and their media is saying that this is perfectly normal, which is basically more Kellyanne Conway gaslighting. So let's set the record straight. They don't get to rename an assault on our democracy and institutions just so they can avoid accountability. That's not how this is going to work anymore. There is so much going on with this. A lot of people are calling it a clown show. I think it's more depressing than that, and more troubling than that, but this is more lies when they're saying this is normal. This is more lies that further the divide in this country and buttress election lies that have led repeatedly to violence. And yes, this is actually another form of election lies. This is an election, and they're lying about it yet again. Kevin McCarthy is now on day 3 of trying to get elected to the Speaker of the House position that he took so for granted that he has already moved into Nancy Pelosi's office. When Republicans try to claim that this failure is perfectly normal, that it's the people at work, this is a lie. It's 20 people, 20 far-right radicals upset that they aren't being catered to. And I wonder where they ever got that idea, that the whole, system is supposed to be catering to them. These are MAGA Republicans. And before that, many, the Freedom Caucus, they were around during the Tea Party ages. This is the whole system Republicans have set up. It's the tyranny of the minority again. Republicans, this time though, their own tactics are being used to destroy them in front of the whole world. But let's not forget, they're doing this for their own power. It's disrespect for the institution and the people it's meant to serve. Of course, Kevin McCarthy is to blame. Ultimately, what kind of leader goes on the floor repeatedly for a vote without being sure that he has the votes? And to make matters even worse, McCarthy is reportedly threatening the rebels behind the scenes, according to them. And it's easy to believe that, given that Kevin McCarthy made a, quote, joke, unquote, about how it would be hard not to use the gavel to hit Nancy Pelosi. Kevin McCarthy is not a man who's known for his leadership skills. Every would-be speaker has to face rebels in their own caucus. The good leaders know how to finesse these negotiations to be a win-win for everyone. And to be fair, Nancy Pelosi is the most effective speaker in modern history for sure. So she made this look easy, but also served as a role model. Kevin McCarthy could have been paying attention to how she got this done. Good leaders, know how to finesse these negotiations, but this gang really doesn't seem to be satisfied with anything that McCarthy is offering them, and it seems ultimately they are unwilling to accept him as a leader. We don't know how today's gonna go every day. I think it would be foolish to try to predict what these people are gonna do, because they're not operating under the norms that we got used to under the Democrats, and even Republicans in the good old days, we're all told, used to respect institutions. I don't think we've seen that consistently for a while from them. But tomorrow, it will be 2 years that 139 House Republicans voted against certifying the presidential election. That was a profound abuse of the public trust and disrespect for our institutions. And here they go again. They remain a threat to democracy. Nothing has changed, sadly. This isn't normal, no matter what they say. Some of their own members acknowledge this. Representative Jeff Van Drew from New Jersey compared the process to Dante's 9 circles of hell. I'm in at least one of them now, he said. But so are we all, especially when the other options being tossed out are Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan. Republicans are now whining that Democrats need to vote for a Republican to show bipartisanship. You know, I wish that was a joke. Representative Dan Bishop, Republican from North Carolina, had the nerve to say this morning that if Democrats had only voted for Representative Brian Donalds yesterday, the fight over who would be Speaker would be over. The entitlement of these folks expecting Democrats to fix this by voting for a Republican is absolutely astonishing. Republicans need help, clearly. They've had 6 votes. We're going on number 7 today, and they haven't elected a speaker yet. They need help. So, in normal relationships, when you need help and you're the weakened party, the other party is unified, they're doing their job, you do the compromising. That's the way relationships that aren't abusive work, and I have long been comparing the way Republicans treat Democrats to sort of an abuse dynamic, because they do this. They demand, like, when they're down, when they're busted basically in public and humiliated, they turn around and they lash out at Democrats, demand and expect Democrats, who they've been abusing, by the way, you know, with these kind of physical, all the ads they did showing violence, shooting a Democrat, to expect those people to bail you out, and not only bail you out, but vote for your side. With a 4-seat majority they only got by gerrymandering. It's absolutely astonishing and grotesque. Did I hate to break it to them? No Democrat is going to vote for Steve Scalise, who not only addressed white nationalists before, but reportedly introduced himself with this charming shorthand. Quote, he told me he was like David Duke without the baggage. They're not going to vote for Jim Jordan, who called a 10-year-old rape victim a liar in his effort to deny that abortion is health care. Jordan, of course, then deleted that tweet when the rapist was charged. So instead of apologizing, you know, this is the whole lack of accountability, lack of responsibility, lack of ethics, lack of integrity that we are seeing over and over again by the Republicans who are elevated, who speak out the most. So before more demands from Republicans come for help for Democrats, let's go back. Let's go back to that Kevin McCarthy quote. I want you to watch Nancy Pelosi hand me that gavel. It will be hard not to hit her with it. He said that after Pelosi had been a target of the 1/6 assassination attempt from McCarthy's own shared base of Trump supporters. They want help from Democrats? These are things that were not apologized for. Representative Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, chair of the Freedom Caucus that's leading this fit, sought a presidential pardon for his role in attempting to overturn the 2020 election. But yesterday, he claimed that he's learned to, quote, take fire, unquote, for the American people, as a way of explaining his role in this shameful attack on our democracy. This man literally tried to steal my vote and the vote of a majority of voters here in Pennsylvania. Perry justified investigations into the 2020 election with wild claims, including alleging that Italian satellites changed the votes here. Okay, sorry about that. It's my dog. He likes to be known. He's taking up a lot of space. All right. He does security here. So I'm going to have to try to talk over him because I don't think he's going to... I think the mailman might be here, his nemesis. Unless you think that was just more conservative crazy talk, a call was actually placed by Secretary Miller to the attaché in Italy to investigate the claim that Italian satellites were changing votes from Trump to Biden. Adam Kinzinger said this. This is one of the best examples of the links that President Trump would go to stay in power. So, Scott Perry is not taking fire for the American people. And of course, the 4 Republican members of Congress who were referred to the House Ethics Committee for failing to comply with subpoenas are Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan, Scott Perry, and Andy Biggs. If they didn't honor a congressional subpoena, one might wonder how they would expect anyone to trust them to lead Congress. They don't respect the power of the institution, clearly. According to testimony from former aide to Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, Cassidy Hutchinson, among the Republican House members who asked for a pardon, Scott Perry, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Mo Brooks, Andy Biggs, and Louis Gohmert. They asked for a pardon for their role in trying to steal votes and overturn an election, and now many of them are trying to suggest that what we are witnessing is totally normal and is actually for the people. Marjorie Taylor Greene threw her fellow conservatives who are not supporting McCarthy, Matt Gaetz, Scott Perry, Lauren Boebert, etc., under the bus in a video clip saying that one of them didn't even vote to overturn the election on January 6th, which is what the base wanted. So when I heard that, I suspect that that's where this idea is coming from, even though there's now a divide between that sort of crazy faction. But I think this is where they get, where they're pinning this idea that they're doing work for the people comes from. And of course, that is disingenuous. After all, who lied to the base claiming election fraud? That's right, it was Trump and these MAGA Republicans. And I got into this in my podcast about what Harry and Meghan's Netflix documentary exposed about how the media works. And in that podcast, I really dug deep and went into and Breitbart was sort of the example for this, because they have a satellite office in London, I believe. But he's actually branched out all over Europe to push far-right narratives. And what they do is they deliberately elevate the lowest voices from the internet. They wash them to give them legitimacy while also providing cover for the journalists who are just, quote, reporting on these Nazis. And then the far-right astroturfed populist puppets like Marjorie Taylor Greene et al. Repeat these talking points. And then they claim, oh my goodness, this is being, these Italian satellites, just take that. Now we've got to investigate this. Hunter Biden's laptop, we've got to investigate this. Thereby inserting forever into history these far-right claims that came from the internet, from, trolls, from bots, from, could be foreign countries. seeking to further our divide, they insert them into history as something legitimate when they're not. So they're taking 4chan, 8chan, white nationalist message boards, talking points, and inserting them into the mainstream. And they have been doing this for at least a decade, doing the enemies of work of democracy, presumably for personal glory and power. We don't know what their personal motive is, and I suspect that it's different for different people. But all of that dark money flowing into our politics and going to these Republicans who are, then parroting these kind of talking points that serve the agendas of foreign power. It makes it impossible to know where, what their motive is. We don't know. We do know who it's serving, though that is something established. So when they claim that they're doing the work of the people, the MAGA base, that's the base that of same people they have propagandized to. They've radicalized these people, and they've used these people. Many of them, and I'm not defending what they, the people on who were violent on January 6th, who violated the law, who tried to, who participated in a domestic terrorist attack. I'm certainly not defending them, but I think that with all forms of abuse, and this is a large form of abuse against our country and against democracy, there are tiers of responsibility. There are people who know what they're doing and know that they're lying. And then there's the people who are lied to. And so many of those people are in jail now after January 6th, but not these Republicans who lied to them. And you have to ask, why is Marjorie Taylor Greene so mad? Well, she was spitting mad in this video, which I kind of debate, should I play video like that? Honestly, I don't. A lot of what these folks do, they do because it gets them attention. It gets them negative attention from the left, and it elevates them on the right. The more negative attention they get from the left, the more elevated they are by the right. But they're getting elevated by the right either way. The crazier they are, the more they're going to get booked on cable news. So I don't like to play. I don't like to play what they're saying, but I will link to this video so in our Substack, so if you want to watch it, you can. But she's mad because, she's been promised great power by Kevin McCarthy. She's not mad for the reason she claims in this video where, we've got to get to work for the people. No, you don't, Marjorie. If you wanted to work for the people, you wouldn't have tried to overthrow an election where the people made their choice known. Like the rest of the MAGA crowd, Marjorie Taylor Greene is just here to stroke her own ego, get on Fox News and other far-right cable heads, and to be powerful. What's happening here is this gang is not fit for governing. They can't handle it. They can't even pick a speaker. And before that gets normalized, here's what President Biden said about this mess yesterday. Before Air Force One departed, this was sent to Politicus USA by the White House press office. It's been edited by me for brevity and clarity. But the question was, Mr. President, are you concerned about the implications of there not being a functioning House of Representatives at this point? The President: well, obviously I am, for two reasons. One, it's embarrassing for the country. I mean, literally. It's just the reality is that to have a Congress that can't function is just embarrassing. We are the greatest nation on earth, in the world. How can that be? And we have had a lot of trouble with attacks on our institutions already. And that's what worries me more than anything else. That's the end of his quote. We have had a lot of trouble with attacks on our institutions. Indeed, Mr. President. What he didn't say was that the attacks mostly came from these same people. There have been relentless, ongoing attacks, violence, dangerous propaganda, and lies coming from the Republican side of the aisle since 2015. Yesterday, these people who tried to steal votes from millions of people were on the House floor claiming that what we were watching was the American people are in charge. Coincidentally, at the same time, a lot of bot types and newer accounts were tweeting, "This is the government working and this is how democracy works." But it's not. This is how Trumpified government works. This is what you get from elected officials and constituents who are angered that the country's changing. They've been lied to so thoroughly that they have put themselves in legal jeopardy sometimes because they thought the election was stolen from them. The Oath Keepers, seditious conspiracy defendant Kenneth Harrelson, quote, didn't know there was a House of Representatives and a Senate when he first met his lawyer last year, according to his attorney. And I bring that up because, it's easy to mock people, but a lot of people don't know how our government works. This isn't just these folks. To think that this man, he was behind a lot of the violence we saw. And he doesn't even know how government works. So, he believes these. How easy is it to sell lies to people who don't even know how government works? Then again, there's an internet out here. We all have access to it. He could have Googled this. You just kind of wonder, where's the critical thinking before you incite or are compelled to incite by someone lying to you? Gosh, I don't know. I mean, check it out first. Do a Google search. But at any rate, this is not the people at work. The people lying to their base, the people responsible for some of their base facing legal ramifications for their actions on 1/6, these election deniers and seditionists are still in Congress, claiming to be doing the work of the people. It would be easy to think that these folks in the House are empowered to behave this way by Trumpism, by the success of his lies, and I think that's partially true. Trump got away with a lot by simply declaring reality, and the media went along for the ride, as this was actually proven through a study that the right-wing media influenced the mainstream media in their coverage of Trump. So Republicans got this idea that they could do this too. But if we only blame Trump, we're just denying the fact. Conservatives have been trying to break government at least since Obama. They did this, in fact, under Clinton. When they are not in power in the executive branch, they loathe the federal government. But when they're in power, they weaponize the executive branch to attack political foes and to run up huge deficits. These are not the people, these people are not running on an ideology other than to break government. And I think I should clarify, so if they're where would they run up these huge deficits? Okay, that takes power from the legislative branch. But the point is that whenever they're not in power, you just take any branch, and now look at what their Supreme Court is doing. They're trying to take power away from the executive branch, and even from the legislative branches, certainly when Democrats were in charge, because they don't have power. If they're not empowered, they're going to try to take that power. And I think certainly, if you got into the history, you would see some of that is normal. We're going to see any executive branch trying to take more power than they should. This is the whole purpose of the way our government is set up. Checks and balances. But it's not checks and balances to steal power that rightfully goes to this other branch of government. And then to impose something that, again, go back to tyranny of the minority, isn't even popular. So look at Roe for that. Former Republican Speaker John Boehner called this out in his book. He said what they're really interested in is what they're really interested in is chaos. They want to throw sand in the gears of the hated federal government until it fails, and then they've finally proved that it's beyond saving. Now that is not working for the people. The only people who benefit if government stops working are the very wealthy, who are then more able to run businesses without oversight or regulation and to continue to avoid paying their fair share of taxes, which they are still not paying. So these are astroturfed extremists. They're working for the top 1%. They themselves might be, quote, stupid, unquote. I don't like that. I don't like name calling like that, but I see a lot of that. But I think even to fall into that attack to say people are stupid is to miss the way that they themselves are willingly being used. What it really is self-interest. Self-interest on steroids. Nancy Pelosi said late last night, "None of us has seen anything like this disrespect for the institution in a most cavalier and frivolous way. It's quite sad. But let's be hopeful that in the next day or so they will find their purpose and their unity, and they understand why they are here." I think they do understand why they're there, and I think that's the problem, because they're not there for the same reasons that Democrats are there. They're not there to legislate. They're not there to do their job. A reminder of what Democrats got done, and certainly Democrats aren't perfect. No one is trying to claim that, but I think to deny what they got done is to fall into this trap that government doesn't work. Government doesn't work when people who aren't working for government, for the people, get elected. Government can work. It's not perfect. It's cumbersome and sometimes ridiculous, but it can work. The American Rescue Plan, Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the PACT Act, CHIPS and Science Act, Inflation Reduction Act, Respect for Marriage Act. They got all of that done. Democrats got all of that done. These are some huge things. I mean, they are going to change this country. I think it was 700,000 manufacturing jobs President Biden mentioned yesterday. They got this done because they weren't doing what we're watching Republicans do. They weren't fighting it out among themselves on the House floor like elementary children. Nancy Pelosi kept them in check. And every single Democrat in her caucus, they all went along with that. People who didn't agree with her, progressives who might not have agreed with what was going on, they understood the ultimate purpose of what they were doing there. And they managed to come to agreements. And that is what's supposed to be happening. So, buckle up, guys. It's going to be crazy today. This is Sarah Jones on the Politicus Pod for Politicus USA's The Daily. Please do subscribe to our Substack, especially if you're tired of billionaires controlling the news that you see. This way we have a way to communicate with you that can't be stopped by Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or any of these other folks who continually keep falling into this far-right chamber and helping elevate a lot of craziness. So help us be a movement. Help yourselves. Help us all by being a part of the movement to support news for the people. Thank you so much. I hope today goes better than yesterday, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.